Hey guys, welcome back into Legacy. So today we're going to hit up another video on Anima Beyond Fantasy, and we're going to talk about the combat modules section of the book. And this is actually a kind of unique section. I apologize; it did take me a little while to get my head all the way around it, but I think I'm ready to talk about it. So, real quick overview of what combat modules are. So, combat modules in Anima generally you train one weapon at a time when you're learning how to fight. So, for example, when you're buying attack, you buy attack in longsword or rapier or whatever. Combat modules allow you to buy multiple weapon types as one package so that you don't take the penalty that normally comes from using weapons that you're not trained in. And I'll talk about that here in just a second because that's the first thing you have to understand. So uh, it's a pretty simple concept, yet it's kind of a little complicated, but I'm hoping I'll make it as simple as humanly possible for you guys, um, if I can. Okay, so I already got into it. The idea behind modules, I'm going to read directly from the book what it says so you get a better idea. When a character develops his attack and defense abilities, he does so with a single weapon, which you will have chosen from the beginning. It's possible to learn to fight without weapons, in which case the character's combat ability is considered to be unarmed. So that's the idea behind modules. So what happens though is if you try to fight with a weapon that you're not familiar with, depending on the classification of weapon, it is going to cause penalties, lots of penalties. Let me go to that screen real fast. Okay, this is the combat modifier penalty table. So if you're using a long sword and you try to use a short sword, it's the same class of weapon, therefore it's considered a similar weapon. So you're only going to take minus 20. But if you were to try to fight with, say, a battle axe instead of a long sword, it's going to be minus 60 to the check because you're fighting with a totally different class of weapons. Mixed class weapons are any weapon that has multiple classifications. They do exist. I'm not going to get into what they are. But if you fight with something that's considered mixed class and you only have one of the classes weapons trained, you are going to take minus 40. So if you fought with a weapon that is both, say, a blunt slashing weapon, but you're only trained with swords or a blunt sword weapon somehow, you take minus 40. If you're untrained in blocking or dodging and try to use that ability, you take a minus 60. Um, so the way that works is that, again, reading directly from the book, this is a penalty that must be applied when a person with a block ability tries to dodge an attack or vice versa. Remember that in addition to the minus 60, the two abilities are based on different characteristics and therefore use different bonuses. So you're going to take a huge penalty if you try to defend yourself in a way you're not trained to defend. And generally speaking, characters want to just develop one of the ways to defend themselves because of the limitations on how you build. Okay, so that's where we're going to get into modules, combat modules. So uh, again, going directly from the book, an individual isn't limited to learning just one weapon. With practice, he can become equally adept with many others. The weapon modules allow a character to eliminate the penalties for wielding weapons other than the one they choose initially, and even on occasion to use their combat ability to launch spells or psychic powers. To acquire these modules, it's necessary to spend the DP indicated for their cost. Okay, so there are different types of modules. They're what called general weapons modules, archetypal weapon modules, and style modules are the three for weapons. So, uh, general weapon modules allow you to take no penalties for using those types of weapons. So, uh, for example, you could take a similar weapon, which allows you to use two similar weapons. It gives you the character the ability to use an additional weapon of the same class as one the character already knows, and it costs 10 development points. Okay, this is where this is going to get a little weird. All of these modules count towards your maximum points you can put into your starting combat abilities or into your combat abilities per level. So you can only put 50% of your development into attack and defense. So if you spend 10 DP here, this 10 DP you cannot spend in attack and defense elsewhere. Okay. And again, the general weapon modules, uh, They cost different DP uh, based on what you do. Because you can go as far as taking whole class of weapons for 50 DP, which lets you use any weapon in that class without penalty. Um, okay, so its effect is allows the use of any weapon of a determined class without applying any penalty to your combat abilities. The player must choose a specific use of swords. He can handle any of them without penalty, would not hold for a bastard sword because it's a mixed class. So mixed class weapons are actually a different module. So, but you can learn to use every sword in the game if you wanted to. Okay, that's how they work. Okay, the next section is what's called archetypal weapons modules. Again, the the cost of these, they're going to cost you 50 VP a piece, but they allow you to use a certain list of weapons, and I'm going to show you samples of these, uh, without penalty. So if you decide you want to become say you want to take dual mode, which is the top one there, they're used by fencing masters and swordsmen. So if you take dual module, you can use any of the following weapons: rapier, foil, parrying dagger, saber, and longsword without penalty, interchangeably for 50 DP. So what you do is you pay 50 DP, and then if during play for some reason, say you drop your longsword, but there's a rapier nearby, you could pick the rapier up and use it without any penalties. Or you could use a rapier and a parrying dagger while dual wielding, and you're going to take no penalties other than the offhand penalties and stuff for having both of those weapons. So modules are very, very, as you can see, kind of very useful. Um, they are, and you can create new archetypal weapon modules with with the GM based on anything that would be kind of considered historically accurate for classifications of weapons. There are several in the book. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There are 12 modules listed. They do a pretty good job of covering a lot of ground. But if you needed to create one of your own, you could easily do so. So these modules are very useful. And then the style modules are a little different in that style modules allow you to do certain actions with lesser penalties. So, for example, you can take area attack for 40 DP, which allows you to reduce the penalty for an area attack maneuver by half, which means it only takes a minus 25 instead of the normal minus 50 for using an area attack style. Again, keep in mind though, when you're looking at the cost of this in the book, all of this takes off from your maximum for a starting character, the maximum 300 DP you can spend on attack and defense. So keep that in mind when you're doing that, because if you take a style or module, you're going to be able to use more weapons, but you're not going to be quite out of the gate anyways. You're not going to be quite as useful as you would be without these modules. But the modules are dead useful, and they're kind of important to combat. Now, there are a couple other modules that are a little different. Um, they're mystical and psychic modules. Uh, these modules allow you to use your attack score to magically project or magically defend, for example. Uh, they're a little different, a little weirder. Uh, they are very expensive. They are 75 DP a piece, and they count towards your supernatural maximum. So if, say, you don't have a good magical projection or you have no magical projection, you can instead take this module to just use your attack score as your magical projection. Uh, Again, can be very, very useful. That's going to be kind of useful for somebody who kind of dabbles in magic but isn't super efficient or doesn't have a lot tied up in their mystical abilities. Uh, most things I've read and seen about the mystical and psychic modules is they're not as useful as the other modules, because the people who normally use magic projection or psychic projection, they have a lot of training in those skills and in those abilities, so they're not gonna really muck up. Okay, so that is the combat modules, guys. Combat modules, like I said, they're pretty simple, but yet they're a little complicated. Nothing too complicated about it. The last thing that we get into in this chapter is gonna be the martial arts. Uh, So martial arts is one of the ways that you're going to gain the ability to fight unarmed. If you take martial arts as your primary ability, unarmed combat, martial arts become very useful. Anybody can learn them. There are two types of martial arts. There's basics and advanced. Um, Basic martial arts have to be learned before you can learn advanced. Every martial art does have requirements before you can take them. So, and you can combine martial arts. So, martial arts are pretty cool in that you can combine them. You are limited to the number of martial arts you may know. It is limited to one martial art for every 40 points you have total in attack and defense ability. So, if you have 90 points in attack and defense, you can have up to two martial arts. Again, pretty simplistic. Um, as far as combining them goes, you can learn. Again, I'm going to read directly from the book because it does a better job than I think I can do explaining. A character can learn various martial arts and choose the advantages that he prefers from each. He can also accumulate the abilities gained and combine their effects, such as launching an additional attack or using a tripping maneuver with only half the normal penalty. He can also choose the higher final damage of his multiple martial arts. Regarding special bonuses to the attack, block, and dodge abilities, these are added as innate bonuses for the character's class, and so the maximum limit combined with those obtained through his profession would be plus 50. Basically, this means that a character who knows several martial arts is not using them separately. Instead, he has created his own martial art using the characteristics interested him the most from each one. So they give a really good example in the book. Should have copied this and shown it. Nobunaga is a master of Shotokan, Kempo, and Sambo. He can therefore carry out additional attacks, applying a -10 to his ability, and any penalty to his combat maneuvers are halved. He also adds together the bonus from Shotokan and Sambo so that he has a bonus of +10 to his attack and +10 to his block. Additionally, he can use the base damage of Shotokan, which is much higher than that of the others. So basically, if you have multiple martial arts, you can form a one massive martial art that just makes you really good at using your hands. Again, uh, learning martial arts does have a pretty significant cost. Generally speaking, they're going to be a little expensive. So if you learn a martial art, you have to invest 50 DP. Uh, but if you forego learning a weapon, that cost is halved. If you are a Tao class, your first martial art is only 10 DP. So Tao are basically monks. Uh, and there's a total of 10 basics and 10 advanced martial arts as well. Uh, it is not very difficult to, as far as learning them, not difficult to learn. You do require time once you start play to learn new martial arts. You can't just spend DP and have a new martial art. Somebody has to teach it to you. Looking at the actual martial arts, I'm generous enough to do that. We're going to look at Kempo. It tells you what it is. The freewheeling style of combat uses a combination of strikes, yada yada. And then it tells you whatever advantages that martial art is going to grant you. So it allows you to carry out additional attacks with a penalty of -10 to your ability instead of the usual -25, has a base damage of 20 plus the character strength bonus, and it uses the blunt table. There are no requirements to learning Kempo. Every martial art also grants you additional martial knowledge. So in this case, it gives you 10 extra martial knowledge points, but it gives you no bonuses to your attack, defense, or any of that. Uh, Different martial arts are going to grant you different abilities and different things. So just looking at them, for example, Aikido requires a sleight of hand of 40, +10 to martial knowledge, and then it gives you a +10 to dodge or block unarmed, as long as you're unarmed. Uh, so again, these are very simplistic to understand. Uh, they are very clear on what they do. But again, guys, when you're investing DP into this, guys, remember you're losing DP from something else to learn martial arts. Martial arts do not count towards your 50% limit, for the record. They do not count towards your 50% limit. So you can learn martial arts as much as you want. Um, so it's not hard. Advanced martial arts build off of the basic martial arts. I did not give an example of these for the video, but advanced martial arts or something like Duma. It's known as the Art of the Wind, and then its advantages. A character who employs Duma adds +10 to the final damage of the martial arts style being used, and he can use the thrust or cut tables when attacking. The forcefulness of these cuts or thrusts is such that it reduces the armor type by 2 points. It also adds +10 to the breakage of his attacks. Again, we'll get into a lot of that stuff when we start talking about combat and how all that works. Its requirements, you have to have either Kempo or Capoeira, uh, and you need the key ability Presence Extrusion. It does grant +10 martial knowledge and +20 to attack. Record keeping, these bonuses that it grants do not grant at each level. It is simply granted when you learn the martial art. So pretty much what's going to happen is you're going to start the game with probably basic martial arts because you're not going to have the key knowledge to really learn learn one of the advanced martial arts. That's something that's going to happen through play. But martial arts, again, are super useful additions to the combat system. They allow unarmed combat to become more than just punching people. And again, guys, I encourage you, if you've got the book or if you look through the book, you'll see how this works. It's very simplistic. And guys, that is the combat modules section of this book. Keep in mind that combat modules, like I said, are kind of vital to the actual combat section of the game because of the way weapons work in particular. Picking up a random weapon is very dangerous in this game because you do not, lack of a better way of putting it, you do not easily slide in from weapon to weapon. It's a little bit like weapon proficiencies in second edition D&D or World Master. Once you have a weapon in your hand, you master that weapon generally. But buying modules can be very useful in that they allow you to, as I was saying, get the ability to switch weapons easily, allows people like weapons masters and warriors to switch weapons based on situation and all that kind of stuff very easily. So keep that in mind. Again, they're very expensive. They can be very expensive. So buying buying style modules or buying archetypal styles and stuff like that can be useful. If you have an idea in your head of what kind of character you want to play, say you want to play a knight, you can take the knight archetype, and that's going to get you the most common weapons for the knight archetype. So, all that being said, guys, if I got something wrong, guys, and you played Anima, please let me know. But that's how I understand it. Everything I've researched, read, redone, gone through has said the same thing. But other than that, guys, leave your thoughts, comments, questions, concerns below. I'm always happy to address them. Otherwise, guys, we do hope you have fun, and we do hope that you guys to see you guys at the game table. I do promise I speak English. Anyways, guys, take it easy.